may be no more of a tired argument than the arguing over which spot in the totem pole quarterback X and quarterback Y belong. So what we do is we group them into tiers, into similar clusters, which is the mathematical term for it. And that allows us to look at quarterbacks that are similar in terms of performance, in terms of what they do. And then if you want to go argue over where they belong in terms of strict order, you can do that. George and Eric here, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Okay, so let's take people behind the curtain a little bit, give a explanation that doesn't rely on graduate level math, that people can kind of understand how this works.
Yeah, I mean, so there are many different ways you can, order quarterbacks, and each one of them is going to provide some value, but none gives the biggest picture in and of itself. So, for example, yards per attempt, or PFF grade per attempt, or big time throw per attempt, or average depth of target. All of those things are great and they have value in themselves, and you can use statistics, namely principal component analysis.
Uh-oh.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's not use that term.
All right.
Let's start over from that side.
So okay, for the 7 of you still listening, so you can take those numbers and basically, weight them by how much variance in the data they explain. And then once you have those numbers, you can basically draw circles around the players that are most similar. And what you get is not only a cluster of the truly elite players, the Breezes, the Rivers, the Mahomes, but also clusters of sub-tiers that are different in some ways. So clusters of players that are more aggressive, some that are more conservative, some that are, downfield throwers, some that, make a lot of big time throws, everything like that. And so that's, I think, in this, you get a really rich understanding of who the best quarterbacks are and who the more similar quarterbacks are.
Yeah, it changes the conversation from, okay, this guy's better than this guy, to, oh, I didn't think about how similar these quarterbacks are performing or actually play the game. And so it's a sort of different, much more healthy conversation. Okay, before we get into it, I want to remind you that if you want to capitalize on any of the information you get here or just make your Wednesday night a little bit more exciting, you want to head to mybookie.ag, because whether it is the MVP race in the NFL or who wins the second half of a random college basketball game, mybookie.ag has you covered. They even have in-game live betting, so if you don't catch the start, you're still in good shape. They have great customer service and they make it easy to cash out. Use promo code PFF to get a $1 match on your first deposit. It's very simple. PFF plus mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid. Speaking of playing, winning, and most of these guys are getting paid, some will in the future, let's break down a couple of clusters here. Let's start with cluster numero uno. Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Pat Mahomes. I wonder what this cluster is based upon.
Yeah, these are just the best players at the position so far, and we see this no matter how you look at it. We talked about in a different video, Brees, Mahomes, they're tied for wins above replacement so far this year. They've been truly the most valuable players in the league, and Rivers has really, he's been great no matter how you slice it. Under pressure, clean, limiting turnover-worthy plays, generating big-time throws. He's been awesome, and so I think his inclusion here is certainly warranted.
Yeah, which one of these is the MVP is an interesting discussion of itself. There's a few games still to be played. Drew Brees, when clean, this is a crazy stat, 26 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's the best ratio in the NFL thus far, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, I'm facing the pressure on either, I think, first or second least number of dropbacks this year. So not only is he performing really well in that scenario, he's spacing it almost more than anybody else.
Okay, we talked about how these can be sort of different ways to not necessarily rank, but just evaluate how quarterbacks are playing. And clusters 2 and 3 do a nice job of that, right? You see a mix of players. Where they actually rank is probably the second question that you should ask. The first is, what makes these similar? Looking at 2 with Goff, Wilson, Watson, Winston, and Fitzpatrick, and then 3, which with a much bigger group, a couple of GOATs and a couple of, well, not so much GOATs. Yeah, there you go. So what do you see as the unifying factors between these two?
Yeah, Goff, Winston, those guys are guys who throw downfield more, oftentimes will produce some more turnover-worthy plays, but even in the case of like Winston, he's leading the NFL in percentage of positively graded throws, right? So you get a lot of variance with those players, a lot different group of cards in their deck, whereas guys, like Brady, he's just simply going to give you more consistency on a play-for-play basis, and, similarly with somebody like Dalton, who's going to give you more consistency. The mean is a little bit different, but on a play-for-play basis, you sort of know what to expect.
Yeah, a guy like Andrew Luck, who might have been in Cluster 2 in previous years, now in Cluster 3, he's found a lot of consistency consistency here. Jared Goff, an interesting data point that backs that up. When he throws to his first read, the deepest average depth of target of any quarterback out there, what him and McVay are doing to allow him to hit that back foot and throw it downfield. Really impressive stuff. Okay, before we get out of here, let's talk about a cluster that might not be so great, and that's cluster 5 with Big Ben, Josh Allen, and Mitch Trubisky. What if I told you that all 3 of these guys are in the bottom 5 in terms of uncatchable throws on their first read? Not a good thing.
That's something actually I would expect. The interesting thing is this is going to be a good discussion point. Big Ben and Mitch Trubisky are probably going to win their division this season at the team level, but they're, again, mostly the product, I think, of players around them playing substantially good football. Tariq Cohen is leading all running backs in yards per route run from the running back position, and Big Ben, obviously, is Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown, probably 2 guys who might approach 2,500 to 3,000 yards receiving this year.
Yeah, both of those guys do things that maybe are a part of the scheme, right? The Steelers throw a ton of screen passes. The Bears, they come out of the gates flying, right? Their first and second drives, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL, and then things start to catch up with Mitch. You look at Josh Allen, he runs the ball really well, right? Kind of out of structure stuff, has the lowest percentage of in-rhythm throws this season. But what that does is it takes away value because in-rhythm throws are valuable. So all 3 of these guys not performing kind of as well as maybe they would want to, particularly in Big Ben's case. Quarterback clusters, will update these as the season goes on. Of course, if you have questions, you can hit us up on Twitter. You can hit Eric up on Twitter. I don't venture into the dark web. Check us out at profootballfocus.com. And of course, subscribe to the PFF Forecast.